Zone 8 was released on April 15th, 2023, and with it came the first canon Catastrophic tower in the spatial system. For a while I was thrown off from grinding it because of its modern gameplay mechanics and having raw difficulty that rivals even Tower of Champions Road. However, after gaining raw skill from my other completions, I decided to give it a shot. So with that said, I bring you Tower of Descent into Exile. Floor 1 introduces some of the mechanics that will be used throughout the tower, which includes shoving walls, elevators, and jump boost zones. There's only two important jumps, the first one being this one, which is only tricky until you realize you can set up like a normal wraparound, and this ladder flick, as every so often I'd fail it due to not getting a jump. There's not much else to discuss, so let's move on. Floor 2 introduces even more client objects, including honey blocks, fading blocks, conveyors, and of course some moving client objects. Even if you've played Tower of Unsettling Heights, the honey blocks are going to take a lot of getting used to for them to become consistent. The hardest jump to learn is probably this one, where you must flick around and then in between these two walls and stay on the honey blocks to reach the platform. Other notable jumps include these long jumps where you must hit the button before doing the second one while being fast, and the wraparound off of this client object. Floor 3 starts off with a neat little gimmick where you have to jump off this ball while it's bouncing to progress. Then after a bottom flick off these trusses, you have to do the same thing, except for now the timing of when you land on and jump off the ball is more important. Then you are met with a tight flick, which may be the hardest jump of 3, but even it becomes muscle memory after a certain point. Afterwards, we're shown off another new mechanic. This red camera will teleport you back to the start of the floor if caught in its beam, so you have to do this truss flick and go along these honey blocks quickly. After this lodge with a fading wall, you have to hit a button while dodging an insta-kill camera, and then do this wraparound. A couple easy jumps later, ensuring we hit the giant button, and we reached floor 4. Floor 4 is a change in atmosphere, mainly because failing past 4 will result in having to restart the tower. It starts off with a jump in between this gap to reach a truss with a jump boost zone. You then flick off and wiggle in between these walls to reach another truss. This next jump is not to be underestimated in my opinion. You have to flick off this truss, avoiding hitting your head on the wedge. Sometimes I wouldn't get a jump when flicking off of it, so I bounce off it to bring my torso as close as possible to the truss, which for some reason makes it give me a jump 100% of the time. Moving on, the next jump to worry about is this awkward head hitter. I like to ledge grab and then stand back up because it always sets me up in a nice spot on the platform, and then do it backwards, shift locking so I can grab the truss. Then you have to bottom flick and wrap around this wall, which for me isn't that hard, but you need good camera control to do it consistently. Now this honey block jump is very inconsistent without a good strat. I promise this one works every single time. A couple long jumps and wraparounds later, and we reach the next hard jump. This jump requires you to be comfortable with lodges, as lodging to keep yourself in the air makes grabbing the truss a lot easier. Once we do the bounce off this truss to the next platform, we're basically on floor 5 as the next few jumps are pretty trivial. Floor 5 is overall easier in difficulty, but still throws in some new mechanics such as this fan, which forces you to flick quickly off these trusses, and ziplines which force you to time your jump off them correctly to reach the next platform. Besides that, this jump at the start requires you to grab onto a fading 2-stud high platform which has a jump boost zone, and get off it before it disappears while also avoiding the wall. The rest of the floor mainly consists of some wraparounds, which shouldn't be a huge threat if you can get this far. The last jump that's worth mentioning is this truss flick. Because you have to shift flick to reach the next truss, it can be hard to get enough distance while avoiding hitting your head. So what I do is bounce off the truss to bring my torso close to it, use shift lock to turn my avatar outwards, and flick using my scroll wheel while in ghost mode to reach the next truss. This is the hardest jump on the floor for me, which is why I started using this strat, and I promise it's really good once you learn it. Floor 6 is the hardest floor thus far, the only saving grace being the ability to save yourself on floors 4 and 5. Also, I know I've said this a lot already, but this floor has 2 more mechanics I used for the first time, which are double jump zones and red teleporters that make you lose progress. The start of the floor requires you to get off the zipline when the block is above your head, otherwise you'll get teleported back to floor 5. After some wraparounds, we have the first use of a double jump. When you enter the white outlined box while midair, you will receive a second jump. You must utilize it to reach the next platform while sneaking in between these walls. Then this stick out and jump to this flat truss are long jumps, so you have to keep in mind to jump very late. The jump off this truss is a little harder than it looks, I set it up at the edge of the truss, climb down a bit, and go off while using downwards momentum. The next couple jumps are more self-explanatory until this truss flick. I failed this quite a few times until I switched to flicking in by zooming in with my scroll wheel, so I can go around in between the walls in first person as it helps me see what I'm doing better. The next tricky jump is the flick off this fading truss. You only have about a second to glide to the right of the truss and flick off it, so you have to be quick, and shift flicking is not recommended here, as it takes longer to do than manually flicking. This jump takes considerable practice for it to become consistent. The next part of importance is this conveyor jump. You have to lodge once above the platform because hitting the red wall will teleport you. This jump is pretty tight, but what helps is focusing on hugging the right wall. For this zipline jump, you should jump off earlier than you think, as more times than not you'll fail due to bumping into the wall. After another double jump part, the only thing standing between you and floor 7 is this transfer over to the opposing zipline, which isn't hard to time in my opinion, just don't overthink it. This is where things get intense. Floor 7 marks yet another change in atmosphere, with darkness surrounding you and instant kill bricks below. The beginning of the floor isn't too bad, consisting of some wraparounds. The first jump of importance is this one where you have to double jump at the correct time to avoid hitting your head, make it over to these walls and lodge until the right wall fades away so you can grab the truss. It's honestly easier than it looks, I probably only failed it once. Then after a truss flick while avoiding the ceiling, there's a truss with a jump boost and you have to jump off of, which isn't that hard either, just gotta make sure you climb down far enough. The next couple of jumps are tricky wraparounds, this one probably having the least room for error, but as long as you keep yourself composed and have good camera control you'll be fine. For this truss flick, you need to get purposely shoved by the wall in order to reach the next platform. Then after a wrap and a stick out into a double jump, we've reached floor 8. Floor 8 is the second hardest floor in my opinion, which can lead to some loop failing if you struggle on the netted jumps. The start has a tough wraparound onto a truss with a jump boost zone to launch you across the next platform, which isn't hard as long as you align your character first. Then there's a zipline which you have to wrap to and get off when you reach the gap in the roof. A couple more hard wraps follow, including this one, which should not be underestimated, as I failed it multiple times by getting caught on the wall. For this zipline, all you do is jump back and forth until your arm touches the fading wall, and then jump off to progress. The spinning wall is easy as long as you jump off when the wall is perfectly straight until you're close enough to go for the truss. This jump is scary because you have to dodge these pulls, and if you fail, it's hard to save yourself on 7. For this, you have to jump over the insta-kill saw and get off the zipline at the right height, or else you'll hit the red teleporter which brings you back to the start of 8. Then you gotta wrap around this pole and lodge in the gap here until the left wall fades. After some truss jumps, there's these walls that you have to lodge in between that start moving once you do so. Then, you have to fall at the correct time onto a zipline which you need to dismount off and grab the truss. Finally, there's 2 fading trusses which you need to switch between to reach the end of floor 8. We've arrived at the hardest floor of the tower. We begin with needing to ledge grab to slow our fall so we can reach the zipline underneath this platform. Once on the zipline, you must dismount shortly after, dodging this thin pull. Then there's 2 tight wraps to reach this truss which you have to bottom flick off and do another tight wrap around. This truss flick is also really tight, you practically have to jump as late as possible. There's a few easier jumps followed by a double jump, for which it's good to know that the double jump refreshes if you re-entered the box. Another bottom flick wrap brings us to this jump where once you hit the button, a wall closes off the road to progress for 5 seconds. So you have to lodge until the timer expires, where you can proceed to exit out of the lodge. There's a double jump to get around this wall to reach these trusses, which you have to flick off and fit into this one stud gap, and it's further than it looks. This zipline brings you up to these walls you gotta lodge in between. You were able to push the walls to the right so you can fall into the platform. This morpher carries you over to this wall that you have to wrap around before it pulls you back. We've got 2 more jumps in our way before 9 outside, which is this fading truss you have to quickly flick around and then jump off him, and this long jump fitting between these walls. Past this point, failing will basically end our whole run, so nerves are highest from this point on. 2 basic long jumps bring us to this scary section where you have to control this wall by moving it left and right while lodged in between them, and to dodge the incoming walls that will otherwise push you off. We transition over to another morpher jump, which is a lot scarier than the first one because you have to jump off as it's still moving, and then quickly lodge to reach the next platform. A few wraparounds and a long jump to a zipline are the only things standing in our way before floor 10, which shouldn't pose any trouble. Amorpha carries us over to our final challenge. It all comes down to this. Floor 10 is short, but all outside. Failing is guaranteed to wipe all our progress away. The start contains a long jump, followed by an awkward wraparound. Then there's a filler jump, bringing us to a wrap that is important to first set up for to fit in between the walls. Another scary wrap leads us to probably the hardest jump of the floor. You have to get around the wall and launch to stop yourself from falling, then turn to fall onto the truss once low enough. The jump off this truss is pretty hard too. I go off while getting downwards momentum after doing an alignment. This flick is the furthest jump I failed. The key to this is to stay close to the wall in front because it's easy to get caught on the other wall if you try turning in too early, which is exactly how I failed it. This next jump is really scary. You gotta jump towards these walls and lodge until you reach the edge of them. Exit the lodge and wiggle your way between these walls to reach the zipline. You will also have to get off the zipline before reaching the instant kill brick ceiling. Once up here, we've basically reached the end. There's just 4 jumps left, the final jump being a very slightly nerfed 4-stud stick out. I'll let the ending play out.
Oh, I'm so relieved that's over. Finally, dude. Oh, man. There we go. 3rd time's the charm. Fuck you, Todie. Shittiest tower I've ever played. Let's go.
Fucking go.
Fuck Todie, dude.
Dude, fucking G, bro. About time.
About time.
Holy
I knew
shit,
it.
dude.
I had a feeling this had to be the stream.
Finally, bro.
Finally.
It's over.
That is a great feeling.
So yeah, as you could tell by the end there, I was so over this tower already. But looking back on my grind overall, it was definitely more enjoyable than TOVH and TOGF. Anyway, that's the end of the video. I hope you all enjoyed it. I know this wasn't TOCR style commentary like you've all been asking me for, but I promise when I eventually beat Cruel Punishment that it will receive a day-by-day overview like TOCR did. If you want to keep up to date with what I'm grinding, then join my Discord server. I post updates there and you'll get notified when I'm live streaming. Thank you for your continued support. I'll see you all next time.